Well, it feels good to be back again here on Friday, but not the normal Friday championship sprint series that you are used to seeing. Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Phil Roberts here for this, what is it called? Friday Roulette mini series taking place today and throughout the entire month of August. Phil Roberts, first of all, thank you very much for joining me and sticking by me on what is a very strange occasion here at RCI.
Yes, it's certainly a unique championship. I was just thinking about it before we started. It's going to be an interesting test of a driver's versatility across different cars. Traditionally, like when we tell people when people who are new to ACC join, the first thing people get told is you need to main a car. You need to be good at. To start being good at this game, you need to pick a car, get used to how it behaves, and then move on to other cars. So everyone's got their own particular choices of car, I think, as we see one person in particular, Benjamin Heilman. Definitely would you say Porsche main, Jesse Lee?
I certainly would. A Porsche main driver. He's a German and a German manufacturer at a German racetrack. And also, this whole series was kind of his idea. So let's talk you through what this series actually is. It's called Friday Roulette. It's a mini championship. There's only 4 rounds of it. So what exactly is going on? The tracks, just like the way Night Owl is set up, the drivers don't know what the tracks are going to be. There is a twist on that, though. The drivers won't know what track they're going to be at next week until they've selected a car. That's right. Friday Roulette means not just the tracks are changing and are random, the cars are as well. You can only run each car one singular time. 4 different cars, 4 different races at 4 different tracks. That's what makes Friday Roulette. And it's going to be very interesting because they've selected their car this week, and obviously you can see what everyone's in. Benjamin Heilman's in the car that I think he would genuinely prefer and sets the benchmark at a 53.825, 65 100ths behind Christoph Verstappen, who set the 825, that is. Partez in there in 3rd place, gets dropped by Grant Willemont, a 53.755, currently quicker than Verstappen. Heilman, Joe Dauber inside the top 4. Daly's first lap in 5th, and Kui in 6th place, as everybody continuing to come across the line. So you get to choose your car, but it has to be a different one every week. That's a unique challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the unique challenges that you said is that you've only got like 40 minutes to prep your car for the setup. But usually, you have probably about an RCI a month, then a week between rounds to sort out your setup, sort out the car for the conditions that are going to be most likely to occur for race day. So yeah, it's one of those ones where you just have to hedge your bets with the car you pick. Certainly, I think you probably want to try and think of a good versatile car. So I don't know, I was going to say Audi's pretty good if you can actually get it to work. Lambo maybe as well. I think the Lambo's quite good at most tracks, if not. I think there's a few because of its lack of top end where it may not be as good. But the majority of the time, I'm probably going to be trying to find the car that will suit whatever the track it will be. I believe the drivers don't have any idea about what the track is until after the deadline for when they pick their car.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Basically, the way this series works, they have till Tuesday evening to select their car. If they don't select a car by that point, they will be randomly assigned a car through random number generation that will give them the car that they are going to be in. They have the opportunity to pick it, but if they don't by Tuesday night, which is the deadline, they will be given a random car. There are exemptions to that. Nobody is going to be given an outdated car. According to Bart Macha, outdated cars are the Jaguar, the Nissan. You get the picture. No one will be given those cars, but you have that choice. Select your own car. Make sure it's different from what you were already in or what you've previously driven. Or the other option, of course, have a random car selected for you. I don't know how many people are going to forget. This is such a unique sort of event. And then after Tuesday night, they know what track they're going to be at as well. So they're blindly picking their cars and going to different racetracks as well. It should make for some very interesting racing, and maybe we're going to see some people that we normally wouldn't expect running up towards the front of the field. Right now, though, usual suspects. Grant Willamont ran the quickest lap thus far, further improved the last time through. It's a 53.472. Heilman 1.5 tenths off of that pace, but still breaking up the Lamborghini extravaganza happening in the first couple of rows. Then it's Verstappen and Daly, both also in Lamborghinis. Funny anecdote for that, Phil. Verstappen asked Daly what he had entered and then immediately decided, I'm just going to drive whatever you're driving anyway.
I was going to say about the random number generator. I think Bart's Mr. Tricky should have used the that spin the wheel website instead, but then had like the outdated cars and like really small what do you want to call it, like chances. So if you're not going to make the effort to pick a car, you might as well run that risk. I noticed there's a few people in outdated cars, mostly the 469 of Agudelo, who's in a Ricer of all things, Jesse Lee. I think he was hoping for Monza or something like that. But
if it would have been Monza, he would have been
an inspired choice.
Yeah,
if it was Monza.
It is quite interesting, isn't it? A couple of old cars. You can select the old cars. It's just that if you fail by Tuesday night to select your own car, you will not be given the old car. And I think that's where Bart Mach is screwed up. I think not picking your car by Tuesday night, not having your selection in, I think it should have guaranteed you being in one of the old cars, should have been the stipulation. Not only does that make you not want to forget to pick your automobile, also it'd be quite funny to see somebody out there in a Jaguar against their will. But of course, I understand that is the exact reason why they are not given those cars. They don't want to give anybody a car unwieldly that they would have to drive against their will. But
it used to be, I was going to say, it used to be quite a successful car, didn't it, that Jaguar? At least I think it did. Like, it won the 24-hour Spa one year, because 2015. It won that year. Literally not that bad for a car just picked up out of the Jaguar showroom.
Of course, Anor Rose has won a race in RCI competition in the pro category in the Jaguar as well. Didn't start on pole for that race, as far as I recall. Didn't need to. Just drove a nice, clean race, set really good laps, and of course, back in that time, I think that was 1.7 era of cars. Like you say, it was pretty formidable in that respect. And the Monday champ, we've got a Jaguar inside the top 10 in the Pro Championship as well. Final 5 minutes here of qualifying.
Pro champ?
Yeah,
you mean
pretty
split
sure.
2?
No, split. Is it split 2?
I think it's split 2. I think
It's probably split 2. I'm going to err on the side that you probably are smarter than I am. And
it's a very dangerous assumption to make. But,
you're an engineer. I would argue you're intelligent.
Well, I've known people that would disagree with that statement, but for me, yeah.
Architects, man. That was a little engineer humor for you, everybody.
Hey, well done, Jesse. We always love a bit of engineer humor, as we see Abaldos Ramos in the 69 move away, and Jesse Lee decides to move on to what's this? Merck Svenik. You have to forgive my inability to pronounce the name, so I can watch the cast back as Jesse Lee corrects me if he can.
Yeah, Mert Sevic here trying to improve on the lap. They're up by nearly an entire second, 3/4 of a second as they come to the line. That should be a decent improvement, and bumps them inside the top 20 for the time being. And a lot of other cars trying to improve as well. Studi, one of those cars, the Flying Hellfish Taters car. Oh, but it's gone wrong for them as they're going to go off in the Mercedes-Benz arena, and that is going to need a very quick return to the pit lane, and we'll see if they immediately exit again. They still have time to come back around and try and improve upon their lap. They might be making an adjustment there, maybe one needed in that case.
It's got about it's about 3.5 minutes left. We've probably got enough time to get a warm-up lap in. It takes about 50, late 1 minute 50s to get in. 56, 58 to get around the track. So Snoo's got plenty of time to get round, find the gap, get one more lap in. As we move on to the 294 of Joachim Shelgren. Currently on an invalid lap, I believe, yesterday, so won't improve on his time. Currently getting place 1.2 seconds off the pace set by Grant Willamot in the 316 Lamborghini. Recent polls to Jesse Lee in the British champ, I believe, Joachim Shelgren.
Yeah, quite interesting too. You got these newer names, these names that are not necessarily brand new, but are newer, and they're coming into the series and they're making names for themselves. Joachim Shelgren, one of those drivers that is on the radar, seems like every single race now, and needs a little bit of help here to get a little bit further up the field, but still already inside the top 10. Abel Dos Ramos for the Tier Sim Racing Esports car. A lot of Lamborghini selection here today. Phil, what do you make of that? For me personally, I think it's a nice, safe choice going into the unknown. I think the Lamborghini has made a name for itself, the Evo 2 anyway, for being a reliable car. Not necessarily the best at any particular thing, but a decent all-arounder and a safe bet. And I think that's what you're seeing today. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a fairly safe bet. Certainly a very high downforce sort of car. I think we've alluded to. It's not quite big on its top end speed, but really, like, you know, there's not many tracks, maybe Spa, Monza, probably another one I can't think of at the minute, but most tracks you're not really looking for top end, certainly not round here. There's only like one long straight on here that Abel Des Ramos is currently on, but as you see from the timing tower, like, your lack of top end isn't really that important. As you see, well, there's only 2 cars in the top 6 which aren't Lamborghinis, basically. That's Benjamin Heilman in the Porsche and Joe Dorber in the McLaren, which is also another decent pick. I'd say the new McLaren, and we see Borski go off in the 924 in the BMW. Another car that I was going to say is a solid choice, Jesse Lee, the M4. Very pretty. I was going to say, as we see him crash again, I was going to say it's a fairly predictable sort of car to drive. It's not too it doesn't take too much work to get it to click around the track, you know what I mean? Front engine car, so fairly stable over the curbs. Yeah, like, there are plenty of cars that, as you say, versatile picks, Lamborghini, BMW being some of them. I think McLaren, the new McLaren's certainly in that, what do you want to call it, like, group as well. Probably not as versatile, but certainly decent if the right track comes up.
I happen to agree with that as well, and this is sort of the state you have. You've got a considerable mix of those cars we mentioned and Porsche up there at the front, and that's what you're probably going to have. That seems to be the right pick for today. It is a 4-race championship after all today, just round number 1. We described the Friday Roulette and what that means. What we didn't sort of describe is why do a championship like this. Well, it's summer. It's the summer break for a lot of people. I know it is for Formula One at this time as well. A lot of people out and about, as you will do in the summer when the weather is nice. So it just isn't right having big championships, says Bart Matcha. He actually said as much as Verstappen decides to go all drifty here. You know, they do the drifting down at the south end of the circuit, not at the start-finish straight, but he will be the first to complete qualifying as he has come across the line. He will go no further than third. The lap to be at a 53.472 set by Grant Willamot. Nobody necessarily too particularly close to that Lamborghini. Jordan Daly up on his lap time. He could make this quite close and loses a little bit off the final couple of turns, but still improves a quarter of a second off, but moves up 1 row into 4th place.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's not many cars on an improving lap at the minute. I think actually Nibbler in the 30s. Oh, he just had a spin. Never mind. I was going to say it's like 1.5 seconds up on his time, but Joachim Shelgren, of course, just behind Stephen Quid. I mean, Quid's 3 tenths up on his lap at the minute. Shelgren's about half a second up on his lap time. Could see both of them certainly get promoted up the table a bit. Mekov also 3 tenths up on his time. As we see we just come around the corner. I think that's moving into a very handy P6. Very well done. And Shelgren pinches that P6 off him. So well done there. Both of them improving on the time quite handily there. And I think that's going to be all she wrote as Das Ramos comes around the corner. He's not improved his time. Will stay 22nd. That's your grid. Very solid lap from Grant Willamot there. I think he said that quite early on, the 153.382. Wasn't nearly said of 150. 0.4 then, but yeah, very solid lap time for him in a full 2 tenths faster than Benjamin Howleman. And then you had to go back a bit more to Verstappen and Daly, both 3 tenths behind. And it feels like a bit of a chasm after that, doesn't it, Jesse Lee? Like, you know, we're only down to like P7 and then nearly a second off the pace. So a very good lap there from Mott.
Right, you are. And you know what's interesting about this is it's just so compact in certain places and others not quite as much. Grant Willamot, by the way, did improve on his last lap. He had needed a little insurance. He felt like he did anyway, and he sent that 53.382 and put a little bit of more of a hurt on the field, gained another tenth or so. But this whole midfield is jammed, packed, full of talent, and they're so close on a time. It's going to be one of those races. He who doesn't make mistakes is likely going to be the winner here today. Hard to bet against Grant Willamot in the race today, but there's a lot of drivers with experience behind him as well. Nice to see some of the names, too, that we haven't seen in a while back in the series. Bill, you're back with me in the comms box. Sorry about you picking the short straw.
Short straw.
Is that not a saying where you're from?
It is, yes, but you make it sound like
it's like jury duty.
like,
You're doing jury duty,
yeah,
and
well,
I
no, not
appreciate
really.
it.
I have fun. I have fun reading it when we can.
Well, I just want to say
It's
hello.
been a while, so I'm trying to like dust off the cobwebs of my microphone. You know what I mean?
There you go. I just want to say thank you to everybody out there watching as well. I see you all in chat. Thank you for joining us. Pity, I'm working on Fridays. I think that was in reference to us talking about the series. Unfortunate for that, of course, but it is an interesting series, and I think for a lot of GT racers, you get tired of doing the same thing. This race is still 1 hour, by the way, and there still is a mandatory pit stop. We'll talk more about that in just a little while, but it is such a strange series and a strange race that attracts people simply because it is something different. Same car, same track, very familiar, but doing it in a different way. Quite fun indeed. So, hello to everybody out there. Hope you're doing well on your Friday evening. And of course, we appreciate you spending a little piece of your Friday with us here. Jesse Lee, Phil Roberts with you in the box today. Just waiting on them to be released from the lane right now. If you're Grant Willamot, Phil, you got to be feeling good, right? You went out there, you've absolutely stuck it to him here in qualifying. Certainly, you feel like you have the best chance to win.
Well, Jesse Lee, as a former pole sitter myself, I can tell you that it's one of those things where you just get, I don't know if you get like distracted or not. Like it's one of those ones where like you're leading the field, you haven't got anybody in front of you as a reference. Like you have somebody to your side, but like you're effectively racing them to turn one, particularly at the Nurburgring. Like it's a very tight turn one, and obviously in pole position you have the inside line, you have the advantage for turn one. But yeah, it's one of those ones where you need to just handle that sense of expectation. You know what I mean? You set the fastest lap. You set the fastest lap by a good 2 temps. So like you should be, sometimes that sort of sense of pressure can, and if it can get to you or not, like just I am faster than everyone else. I need to be here. But I think Grant Willamot's fairly easy with that knowledge. Like I'm fairly cool where I am. He shouldn't have any issue too much. But we'll see through turn one.
We certainly will. Everybody's still preparing for the race. I was reading some chat messages. I was reading them more closely than I did a moment ago. Joe Dauber, who's in the race, he actually apologized for the lack of Jaguar in today's race. Of course, Joe Dauber, a known Jag enthusiast. But that wasn't the thing that caught my eye. It was his message after that saying he's going to let the roulette wheel roll. Phil Roberts, that's a driver who is embracing the Friday Roulette Challenge and is, I believe, at least by what they're saying in chat, they're not selecting their car. They're letting Bart Macha's random wheel do it for them.
Or he's going to have his own random wheel do it for him, Jesse Lee.
Oh, that's such a good idea. Either way, I love drivers that embrace the chaos. Kevin Boss also said something I missed too. If his work schedule stays the same, he may put a Jag on this grid next week.
Well, that's a waste of your Jag card, to be honest, Kevin Boss. I think that should be a rule, Jesse Lee. Everyone has a mandatory Jag round. I'm calling for it now. Mandatory Jag round.
A mandatory.
Why can't we have one, Jesse Lee?
A mandatory Jag round.
Yes.
How very interesting.
Now, why not, Jesse Lee? Tell me, why not?
I think we should have another Jaguar series, if you ask me.
Not all Jags, and it's not fun. You need to cheer on the underdog. You need to have a Jag in with the car.
You want specifically every driver to have a wild card Jag race where they have to enter.
Yeah, exactly. Not everyone has in a Jag. You have to elect the Jaguar, at least one. Or the Nissan, whichever one. You have to play your Godzilla card.
That is a heck of a thing.
This is why they don't let me decide these championships, because
there is a couple
all these silly ideas.
There is a couple of things to consider for this series. Bart Macha has not been shy about letting people know that this was actually Benjamin Heilman's idea. He's in the 796. Bart is not taking any credit for this, which I think, as nice as that is of Bart, I think he's made it a point that this was Benjamin Heilman's idea, just in case it doesn't work out so well.
Not sure.
So
I'm not sure Bart's the sort of person that would fob off the credit onto someone else just to.
Well, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do the opposite of that. If I don't think Bart's actually doing that, just so you know, but just in case this is the most brilliant idea, I came up with it. How about
good.
That? How about that? I'm stealing credit if it works. I think it's
well, it's official. It's official. It's on the stream. People don't read the Discord. People watch the stream back. So then, there you go. It's we've done it, Jesse Lee. You are the creator of this championship.
Welcome to my championship.
Jesse Lee Roulette. Let's go.
Oh my goodness, this is something I would do though. I envy those in the race tonight. By the way, 26 signups for the roulette. I think we've got 24 cars on track, which I believe would indicate 2 sign-outs for week 1. We've had one driver in chat by the name of Kevin Boss, our fellow broadcaster commentator, who has mentioned that as long as his work schedule holds out, he may be joining us next week anyway. But for right now,
yeah, he did say it. We have it in writing, Jesse. We have the receipts. If he does not, not race next week in the Jag, then Kevin Boss.
I'm telling you what, if next week is random and it's Monza and he picks a Jag, that's going to be very interesting. But this is what we've got this week. Take a note of what car every driver is in, because next week, due to the way that Friday Roulette works, they will not be in these cars next week. A new car, a new racetrack every single week, rounding the Coca-Cola curve for the first time, for the last time. Before we get underway in this championship, Grant Willemot out qualifying Benjamin Heilman, Verstappen, Daly, Dauber, Shelgren, Cui, Dos Ramos, Rombach, Mikov is your top 10. This is going to be very fast racing, 1 hour, a required pit stop at some point in the race, but it's a green flag, and we are live for the Friday Roulette Challenge And it's a pretty decent getaway from everybody, all told. A group up down the inside line. The Lamborghini's looking very fierce. Second place under fire here. Verstappen making their way around their sometimes teammate, Benjamin Heilman. Heilman fighting back through the arena section. In back behind, Jordan Daly fighting off Dauber for fourth place as well. As Grant Willemot gets a nice start, and he's away cleanly.
Yeah, I was going to say fantastic recovery from Benjamin Heilman from turn 1 into the transition to turn 2. Verstappen had such a great start on Heilman through into turn 1, the inside line, had the move. I thought he had the move done, but Heilman came back really strong through the Mercedes-Benz section and reached the rewards for his the recovery back in. He's back in second place now, but I think we haven't seen that many positions change hands just yet. Yesterday, as we see, speaking a bit too soon here, as we see Sunny McFluid make his way around, or get overtaken actually by who's this now? This is hang on, this is Wilkinson, Reece Wilkinson there in the number 6 there, makes a very nice clean move into P18 basically.
Reece Wilkinson able to make that move work, and look at this, the rider here in this shot trying to make some moves. That, ladies and gentlemen, that is not easy to do. That rider from Agudelo is a whole different animal. It doesn't have the downforce that a GT3 car has. It has way more power than you would expect it to have, though, so it's a bit of an odd sort of car to select, especially one that you weren't forced into having. But that is, again, all part of embracing the chaos of Friday Roulette. A car already coming down into the pit lane. Is that Mikov? It is Mikov out of the top 12 or so into the pit lane as soon as they were open. A 57-minute window. And I could have sworn I saw a phantom or a ghost.
Daniel is in the pits as well.
I could have sworn I saw something sitting on the racetrack, though, but I guess my eyes are starting to fail me. But everybody else,
the ghost of the ring.
The ghost of the ring. Everybody else away pretty cleanly indeed. Only a couple of contacts. The 91 car of Marvin Steer had a couple of lap 1 contacts, but nothing too significant, as everybody was able to just about get away with it. John Eraser also made a little bit of contact as well, but considering they're all pretty much where they were at the start, nothing untoward happened. Grant Willemot enjoys a 1-second lead over Heilman as the rest of the field tries to sort of maintain contact, but it's going to be a tough day. Grant Willemot was the quickest in quali in every sector, Phil. How does Benjamin Heilman keep pace?
I think it's one of those ones where you just have to not push yourself too much. If you're definitely not faster than somebody else, then if you push yourself a bit too hard, you could end up making mistakes, particularly around here. It's a bit risky, particularly for the chicane, where if you hit the curbs wrong, you're just going to end up flying somewhere. So it was a better idea just to err on the side of, like, stay comfortably, particularly this part of the race, stay comfortably in your, I was going to say comfort zone, but I've used the word comfort way too many times. Jordan Daly have a bit of a moment out of the chicane. That's what I was talking about. Then he just hit the curb wrong, end up having the car just go a bit sideways. Not too sideways, but certainly he lost a bit of time to Verstappen there. He's got Dorver just behind him as well. And I think Quee and Shelgren aren't too far behind this. I was going to say train then, but I'm not really sure you want to call... Would you call this a train, Jesse Lee?
Yeah, I absolutely would. This is definitely a train. Everybody feeling each other out right now. You got a lot of similar cars, but some that are completely different. A little bit of extra brake required for Jordan Daly to keep from going to the back of Christoph Verstappen, and Joe Dauber looming large in the background, now fully in this shot. Speaking of the background, Stephen Quee coming into the picture more prominently as well. John Eraser into the pit lane that time by with Zorsic in the 175. All these cars completing their mandatory stop. The mandatory pit requirements for this championship, quite simple as it gets. A mandatory stop within the 57-minute pit window. You have to take 1 liter of fuel. You are not required to take tires, and you don't have to be sitting still for any particular amount of time. Just you have to onboard a single liter of fuel. That is the requirement of pit road. And several cars coming in as early as possible to get it done. We don't see that all of the time, Phil Roberts. So why have they done that today, coming in that early?
I think it depends on like how confident you are in traffic and how convinced you'll be that you can effectively hot lap on your own and be consistent and still be fast. It's a skill in itself, like being able to be consistent with nobody else around you as a yardstick, should we say? And obviously, as we see, there's a skill in itself being able to keep up in a train or be able to maintain your position in the train, as Jordan Daly's doing right now. So, it's just how some people prefer to race. Some people prefer to race where they instantly pit, so they got that out of the way. I've got effectively the track to myself. I can go at my own pace and see what happens. I can stay out of any incidents that would hold me up or might make me lose time. While other people would say, "No, I want to stay with the rest of the group. I've got some, I've got time here. I can get in the slipstream and make up time that way." So there's different ways of going about it. I think that neither of them are more invalid than the other, but it's down to driver preference at the end of the day.
Certainly is. Raphael Huell in the middle of this pack, almost dead middle in 10th place, looking to make a move on Andy Boardman, stalking the 66 McLaren is the number 21 ST Racing BMW. Again, it's going to be so weird. Normally as broadcasters, we get used to a livery, we get used to a car number, and we get used to the car in general. And when a driver changes up their cars, it is very odd for us to onboard that information. It's going to be so difficult this season.
Oh, Boardman's gone wide.
Every single one is quite different. No, it's completely fine. Boardman did go wide, but not nearly wide enough to allow Raphael Huell to make a move. In fact, didn't even act like a move was on the cards there for Huell. Just maybe the McLaren, you mentioned earlier, the McLaren seems to have pretty excellent balance, the new one. And I think it's just pacing the BMW right now.
I think one of the main advantages you'll have on Boardman through here is that BMW has such better brakes than McLaren. So it may be that Huell just can take advantage from the extra stopping distance, the reduced stopping distance he has because of the better brakes. McLaren's advantage obviously comes from the fact that it's a lot faster through the straight lines. It can be a rocket ship if you can set it up properly. But I think one of the other advantages is it can just carry, even though it can't brake as better as the BMW, it certainly can carry speed because of its aero than the BMW. So, and also obviously the engine position. It's a mid-engine car, isn't it, Jesse, the McLaren? So it has that advantage there. So Huell's gonna have to weigh up how to get past Boardman through these heavy braking zones, particularly through turn 1 and through the hairpin at the bottom. I forgot what that one's called now. But yeah, that should be his focus to get past Boardman, I think, basically.
Yannick Rombach finds himself at the end of a train. You see these groups of cars. I've shown you 3 groups of 3 cars that are all like this. You've got a car leading that's defending, a car in the middle that's trying to get around. That's Kui and Shelgren, respectively. And then you have Yannick Rombach, who is the tail end, or the caboose, as I would say. I'm still frustrated that British people don't have trained cabooses. Caboose?
It's called a brake van. It's called a brake van in
yeah, see, they're red, and they're called cabooses in the States anyway, but that's what we refer to as the car last in line. Not last on the racetrack, just last in line, and that's exactly what you have here for Rombach. Such a delicate balancing act in a situation. You don't want to be overly aggressive, but at some point you have to take your opportunities. You got to know that Shelgren, the car in the middle here, is going to be at a disadvantage at some point. Look at this, a move potentially being made, trying to go down the inside is Shelgren. Joachim Shelgren down the inside of the chicane. He's going to get it done easy peasy. Stephen Kui not exactly defending that as hard as they could, realized that they were dead to rights, didn't quite get the run into the dog leg they would have wanted, and Shelgren up a spot.
Yeah, very, very brave move there from Shelgren, but I think as well as a credit to Kui there, I think he recognised that there's not really that much to fight for, as you see Andy Boardman and Huell fight for into turn 1, I think. Boardman's going to have the advantage over Huel through here just because he's on the inside line. Moves out to the outside and he's comfortably keeps control of that position. That's what you want to do sometimes, Jesse Lee, if you're able to. Is if you're side by side with someone and you just make it through the corner exit, you can just move your car gently over in front of them. You can just control their exit a bit. You know, it's not unheard of. It's certainly a decent racecraft. But yeah, well defended there from Andy Bob. I think Rambat wants to get past. Well, yes, he has Jesse Lee. I think he's done it for the Mercedes-Benz section. They were side by side through there. We were watching Huel and Boardman through there. But yeah, so. I'm not really sure if Quee's just going backwards or if we're just unsettled and from the Shelgren move and then Ramback's taking advantage of that. I suspect it's the latter, knowing the driver of Quee's experience and quality.
Yeah, I would have to tend to agree. Just maybe didn't want to even be in that situation in the first place. Realized Shelgren and Rambach maybe qualified slightly out of position, or it could be their strategy too for Stephen Quee that is putting them a little bit further back. And you never know. We've seen that before. A driver falling back early, they can come on strong near the end of the race, and you wonder, like you talk about a driver of Quee's quality, and I would give them certainly veteran status in the RCI annals of history, and it wouldn't surprise
me. The RCI expanded universe.
Indeed, the RCI cinematic universe. I wouldn't be surprised at all in the second half to see the 26 making up some of those spots back again.
Yeah, I think there's some logic to that. It may be that potentially we could be looking at someone looking after the tyres, obviously, as we've mentioned before. Oh, and as you see Mech up there have a bit of a moment. That's one of the things about this McLaren you have to be careful of. It's just still a bit sketchy on when he pushed it beyond its limits. And McLaren definitely is very quick to tell you that it's not happy with your driving. So it may have just been that from Mech up. But going back to a point, sorry, Jesse Lee. We've got a pit stop with only like a litre of fuel requirement, so it makes no sense to change your tyres. It's a 30-second stop versus a 3-second stop, so you know you do the maths on that one, which is faster. But yeah, so there is a motivation to not push on those tyres, just look after them a bit. Like you don't want to be pushing them too hard. We're only like less than 15 minutes into the race, so there is a logic here of not pushing too hard. We see Jordan Daly go a bit too wide there. Verstappen nearly went into the back. It was very good driving from both. They're in the same Discord voice channel, aren't they, Jesse Lee? So they should be able to coordinate if one of them's gone a bit too wide. But yeah, some very good driving, and it sort of brought Dorber back into play here a bit. I think he was trailing a little bit from these two, but certainly back into play at the minute.
Certainly is. Jordan Daly able to make the pass for P3. Verstappen, I don't know if they slipped or maybe that was orchestrated past the 747 Iron Lynx liveried Lamborghini, falling back just like Stephen Quee we saw earlier. Some Lamborghinis going forward, some going backward just a little bit, as Daly able to gap Verstappen now, and Verstappen falling into the arms of Joe Dauber. And you don't look too far back into the background here. You see Joachim Shelgren, who may be appearing into this picture. Does Dauber have a look down into one? It's a defensive line from Verstappen. It's a wide turn from Dauber. That's definitely on purpose to try this. The over-under move, he isn't able to do it. Verstappen recognizes it, parks it onto the apex as we enter the arena section of the track. Will Dauber get a little bit aggressive here? No, goes wide again. Once again, that's very much on purpose. He's trying to set this up as you exit the arena to get the better run, but by that point, Verstappen had regained composure and grip and driven away just enough to keep the move from happening. Excellent driving, excellent back and forth between two veterans. I love to see that.
I was going to say, I think the switch back from Dauber through turn one probably not the most optimal move, I'd say, just because, you know, the switchback, you tend to be able to come back onto the inside line of the corner you're on, so he would have been on the right-hand side of the track, which would have left him outside for turn two. So, you know, it's a bit weird to say this, but at some point, like, there's a bit of an argument that maybe overshooting turn one leaves you at a bit of, you know, a decent defending advantage through to turn 2 and 3. So, you know, I think switchbacks really should be looking at, like, say, through some of these longer sections of the track. I'm not really sure where you can even employ it. Maybe the hairpin at the end of the bottom end of the track, maybe, or through this turn after the chicane. What do you call it, Jesse? It's not the Coca-Cola curve. What do you call it?
I'm not entirely.
You said there was a
sure.
Coca-Cola. You said one of them was a
Coca-Cola curve is this turn we're in, right?
Right. Yeah. So this is what I mean. You can have a switch back through here if you can get side by side with someone, or force them to the inside line, only because this is such a long straight, and you can take advantage of your what did you call it? I nearly said up and under then, but that's a rugby term. Or a switchback or something like that. But
Crossover move.
really, your crossover, you want to take advantage of that, because the only time, like through a long straight, just because you can get that late apex, you can get a better corner exit speed over the car in front of you. So that's really your motivation using a move like that. Really sure you want to be using that through some of these tight twisty bits, unless you're able to definitely get the inside line next corner that you're on.
Yeah, it's dangerous no matter what you do, because you're going to be on a line that is contrarian to what some other drivers are going to be doing, and that makes you unpredictable of sorts. But you've got to do something. You're never going to get past somebody by simply following them. You have to do something different. You have to beat them off the corner. You have to get inside of them, and that's what taking those long run-ups do. That's what Joe was trying to do into turn one a couple of laps ago. Just do something different. Hope Verstappen slips on the exit, gets a little bit too far to the left, hits the curb. Hitting the dirt is golden. I love doing that in a public lobby where they overdrive turn one. They get out into the dirt, and all they have to do is touch it on the exit of one. And no matter where you put your car, as long as it's not right behind them, you're going to gain an advantage as you enter the arena section of the track. And that's so good. And it's such an easy move to do, simply because you don't have to do anything. You're just letting other people make a mistake. The problem for Joe Dauber is that's esports driver Christoph Verstappen in front of them. He doesn't really make mistakes too often.
I think doing a bit of a vice grip where you just gradually apply pressure isn't something that Christoph Verstappen's going to be that phased by, to be honest. Like, he's probably used to running in a pack where another car is close to him. But Jordan Daly's made a bit of a mistake coming through the chicane. That's why he's suddenly just so close to Verstappen again. These three here just seem determined not to run away from each other at the minute. So yeah, some brilliant driving, to be honest. We haven't seen an incident from any of these just yet. That's commentator's curse, obviously, but yeah, some fantastic driving, to be honest. But yes, we've seen Dauber here. I think when you're at the back of one of these trains, Jesse Lee, you're probably kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with the car in the middle. Like, you're waiting for the car in the middle to either make a mistake in terms of like making a pass on the car in front and going off the track, or overshooting or something like that, or causing incident with the car in front. Sometimes the policy, particularly we're only 20 minutes into this race, we've still got a majority of the race to go, so it may be the case that you can just sit back and just be the spectator and just see if anything's about to happen. But usually you probably want to employ that sort of thing if the two cars in front are arguing a bit, which is Daily go a bit off the track there, Jesse Lee. I think some of these guys are pushing a bit hard now.
Yeah, well, what I was reacting to, sorry, was Daly went off the racetrack in the Schumacher S's, but that wasn't the most interesting part. Verstappen and Dauber just about joined him, all driving in a line, following each other. You kind of put the blinders on and you're just doing whatever the car in front of you is doing, and that can get you into trouble. And Daly, fortunately, it wasn't too big of a moment. It would have slowed him down, and it probably did, but you didn't notice he slowed him down because Verstappen did almost the same exact thing. And blessing and a curse, following other cars. Is he close enough this time? I don't think he is. Will Verstappen make a move down into the corner? I don't think he will. I think he realizes what we realize. The gap, though quite small, just slightly too big to make that move count. Stephen Quee into the pit lane out of the top 10. We're going to be very interested to see. That was a car that was falling through the field earlier on in this race. Does this pit stop help them? And And is this all a part of their strategy? Meanwhile, fighting for the last step of the podium, still very much happening. Not missing anything just in front of this. Grant Willemot enjoys a 2.5-second lead. That lead is stabilized a little bit. Benjamin Heilman no longer falling behind the 316 Lamborghini. They've pretty much stayed that way. Rather unfortunately for Daly, Verstappen, and Dauber, they've been racing each other so hard they have lost quite a bit of contact. 6.5 seconds up to second place. So this is very much a fight for third.
I was going to say, when you were mentioning about holding each other up, I think they're just making little mistakes and they're just holding each other up at the minute. So I think at this point, it's one of those things where you just have to work a bit as a team. But because they're so scared of each other, not scared, I'm not really sure that's the right word to use, but maybe there's a bit of mirror watching going on, Jesse Lee, where, you know, they're not sure what the other's doing. Because usually, like, you know, at this sort of point, you want to be able to just sit in the other guy's toe, just drag yourself along, work as a team, to try and get back up in front. But if we're all just going to make mistakes where they're just going to hold each other up, and we're just going to play into Benjamin Heilman's hands and maybe Joachim Sheldon behind, who's
it's a big move! It's a big mistake!
The road. Oh, he nearly went into the pit lane then. Fantastic recovery from Jordan Daly, Jesse Lee, though.
Let's take a look at what happened to Jordan Daly. He just gets too much of the curb and drives over the curb on the right, or excuse me, the left-hand side part of the racetrack, and he somehow drove it back onto the course and saved it. He gave up third place to Verstappen. He was able to cover off Joe Dauber. A scary moment for Daly. We've seen a couple of instances where he's driven off the road and got away with it. Though he lost the spot, Phil, I'm going to say he got away with that. That could have been way bigger than it was.
Well, I want to see how close he was to that pit lane barrier, to be honest. That's the first thing I was worried about, was just telling him no, he's going to right there.
It was sideways.
He's going to right off his car. Yeah, sideways through that, but fantastic car control to bring it back, though. And as you say, I think, to be honest, in that situation, Jordan Daly would have taken your hand off if you told him, Daly, you're going to only lose one position from the spin. So yeah. He's probably got away with that a bit, but yeah. So Verstappen now, probably held up a bit by a few mistakes from Daly, but now he has the opportunity now to demonstrate he can pull ahead. And now Dauber's got Daly to get past for P4.
Yeah, for Joe Dauber, it's still the same situation, same song, different verse. A little frustration for Joe, certainly, because he's no closer to the front of the grid or closer to the podium. He's seen a car make a mistake. He was unable to capitalize because of the quick recovery of Daly. Verstappen's happy because that has released him a little bit. Keep in mind, Daly was running Verstappen down earlier on. We didn't see what happened to put the 747 behind the 197, but Daly clearly was able to make their way around. I would hazard a guess Verstappen made a mistake just as simple as Daly's was at this particular point of the racetrack one lap ago, and that's how they got swapped back. But now Verstappen back out in front of Daly and Dauber still together. Shelgren still looming in the background here. No closer, but not really any further. Benjamin Heilman, it was 2.5, 2.7 seconds, depending on what sector time they hit. Now it's under 2 seconds. Benjamin Heilman making up ground on Grant Willemot now at the front of this field.
Yeah, maybe that, Heilman's got a bit of I'm going to say, like a setup that just looks after these tires, and maybe that's just the Porsche in general. Maybe it's just better on these tires and these Lamborghinis are with that higher downforce. I don't quite know, Jesse Lee, but whichever way it is, I think it's probably that, because I'm pretty sure if Shelton's even he's about, he's a 5'3", so he's faster than Verstappen and Daly that lap. Dauber's in the 56.0, but I think he's just been hindered a bit by having to slow to check up for these tail-happy Lambos, I'd say, definitely.
Well, potentially so here. Oh, and Jordan Daly's going to go wide again. Is this also another issue for Daly? Daly wide. Dauber ran a perfectly good line through the Schumacher S's. Dauber looking around the outside. Is he trying to cut up the inside? He is, but a nice recovery from Jordan Daly again, and the Just Gamers Lamborghini still able to frustrate Joe Dauber. Dauber had half a chance. He had a look. Daly gave him the outside line, of course, took the defensive line, but still unable to make it happen. All credit to Joe Dauber in a case like this, not willing to make the big mistake, not willing to give up more ground than need be, but also not going for it fully. Oh, another little bit of a mistake there. Didn't quite go for it on the apex. A weird Coca-Cola curve for Daly there.
He may have improved him. Yeah, he may have him through turn one now. He's got a beautiful bit of slipstream. He's right there. Daly's gone to the inside line. We've just about managed to avoid an incident there. Dauber's still on. No, Daly spun. I think Joe Dauber's given him a bit of a nudge, but I'm not really sure how much of that he could have done to avoid contact there, Jesse Lee. We'll have to probably see that on a bit more of a detailed replay, should we say? But yeah,
let's take a
certainly
look.
my first reaction to that one was Daly's just grabbed a bit too much curve through turn one and just given a little bit of a squirm, and Dauber's probably got nowhere to go. But we're about to see as we come through turn one.
Oh, it's curb.
Yeah, I think Daly's eating a bit of curve, and I'm not really sure if Dauber had enough time to react to that. But yeah, we'll deal with it. Well, I was going to say we were going to have the stewards deal with it, but I can't really say that without having to deal with it probably myself. Gets reported.
I see what you've done. You boxed yourself in on that one.
I boxed myself in on that one, but yeah, I've not said anything that would influence anybody, so I'll just give my first reaction to whatever camera angles we've had. But yeah, pretty thing to be honest. From those camera angles we saw there, it looked fairly. It'll be fairly harsh to give anything to Joe Dauber on that one, but without the other camera angles we asked for post-race reports, we don't want to give a definitive view. That's the word I was looking for.
Jordan Daly spinning to the inside of turn one. It's easy to do. There's such an elevation change. You can unsettle the car immediately if you're turning and getting on that curb. It bounces exactly like that. Luckily, everybody else able to make it through. Daly rejoining appropriately, and finally some sweet relief for Joe Dauber, able to make that pass. Daly lost more spots, by the way. Of course, Shelgren, Rombach also through. Daly, who was running third about 4 laps ago, down to P8, and that car, the 197 Just Gamers car, into the pit lane. And that pit stop could not have come at a better time. Time to regroup if you're Jordan Daly.
Yeah, he may have had some slight damage to the rear of his car, or maybe in the corner. I'm not really sure what Dauber was hitting. When I say hit him, I don't want to insinuate he's done it on purpose, obviously.
Good Lord.
An accident.
Do you know,
it's
I was wondering.
Have you never seen these?
I haven't seen this one. I was wondering what Kevin Boss was reacting to in chat earlier, and I was like, what's wrong with Snooty's car? Because I saw the side of it. I saw the Flying Hellfish Taters livery. And I was like, what's wrong with that? That is a face on that car. That is a livery of all time. Snooty, you've outdone yourself.
Yeah, it's a livery only a mother could love, to be honest, Jesse Lee. But
is that a tongue inside the grill as well? It sure
I think
is.
so, yes.
Oh my
Indeed, yeah.
goodness. Hey, I'm also the one on the cameras tonight. That's why it's not nearly as good as whenever Stewie does it. But because I am the one on the cameras, I can do stuff like this and show you some very interesting angles here. If we just do this,
go on.
Right, and I do.
Oh yeah, we swap cameras. Yeah, go on.
Yep. Oh, look at that! Now that is.
That is terrible. That's like from a horror movie, to be honest, Jesse.
That is.
You know what? That needs to be like, if only this was slightly darker, like something like later in the day. That would have looked a bit eerie, if I'm being honest, Jesse Lee. Maybe we could have had like one of those very rare driving horror games, to be honest.
Very rare driving horror games.
There are a few though. There are a few out there, Jesse.
Well, all credit to Snooty and the livery on this car. It is intimidating from the front. It's quite nice from several other angles. Quite intimidating from the front, though. Wilkinson does lead McFlude, does lead Svinik, and those are the 3 cars in this group, and one of the closest battles that we have on the field right now. McFlude trying to keep Svinik behind them for the time being. pretty much everybody behind this group have pitted and went back out on the racetrack. Stephen Kwai is the leader of the cars that have pitted. They lead John Razor and Andy Boardman. Mikov, Zorsic, Steer, the group that have pitted. Several of those cars are actually quite close to each other, including supposed to be Marvin Steer. I don't know how it didn't go to Marvin Steer, but it didn't. And this is the battle I want to. Oh, never mind. I was right the first time. They're all three together now. The rider, not technically involved in this fight, but not really, as they have. Yep, a pit stop to give. Oh, and that's a bad corner for Marvin Steer for Rapid Racing, as they're trying to get back and get by Zorsic.
Yeah, it's probably one of those ones where I think Steer's probably just a bit frustrated, maybe stepping out of BMW, as we said before. BMW certainly strong in its brakes, really does help trying to defend your position through here. But you know, I think they're trying to catch up with Beckhoff at the minute. He's been a minute. He's in the 58 5. I'm not really sure if he's had a bit of a spin. It seems a bit slow to me. But yeah, certainly these two in front probably work as a team. They could probably catch up with 16th place Beckhoff, but Zorsic there just going a bit wide, and Steer still trying to catch up with that. I think they'll probably lead that rider behind at some point, Jesse Lee. I think, no offense to Agudelo, but I think the rider's sadly not quite comfortable around here, no matter what sort of driver's driving it. So, yeah, they seem to be pulling away reasonably comfortably from the rider behind.
Yeah, of course, we are just after halfway in this first round of the Friday Roulette Championship. 4 rounds, 4 random races, 4 random cars, and that's what we got on store for you this August. Of course, we'll be back with you next Friday as well for round number 2. This is normally the part where I tell you where we are, but I can't because we don't know. And I asked event manager Bart Macha, does he secretly know where we're going to be already? He told me, and I believe Bart Macha, he's a trustworthy man. He told me no, because he will not pick them or pick the track until the drivers and cars have been settled.
Right? Is this normal randomness, or is this like what they call is it called like chance memory or something like that, where we know that we've had the Nurburgring, so that means there's going to be no Nurburgring chance next week?
Well, you're counting cards at that point, because that's what counting cards is, isn't it? It's process of elimination, right?
I thought counting cards was like you assigned what is it now? Like, is it 1 to 7 is like 1 or 0, and anything that's a king or a 9 is a 10 through the suits is a 2. So if you get more than 2, then you should fold or something like that in blackjack. I forgot what it was yesterday.
Yeah. There is math. There is math involved, right? There's always math.
We'll get kicked out of a casino, dude. That's all I remember.
It's not illegal. It's frowned upon. Just so we're clear.
I don't see how it's frowned upon. It's just you gaming the system to me. I don't see how that could be frowned upon. In those sort of places, the odds are already stacked against you. So
casinos like to make money. We're halfway in this race. We're at to the point where welcome to the RCI podcast. Welcome to the RCI podcast. But what I was going to say is we've made it to halfway. Are you surprised, Phil, that we still got just about half the field that haven't completed their pit stop yet, or haven't come in around the halfway point?
No, not really. Like, usually you have drivers who know they don't need to change tires. Like, I'd be surprised if we had, for instance, fixed refueling, and usually you'll find people will sacrifice that extra 5 seconds rather than 25 seconds for a new set of boots on their car. But if they know they're only going to put in a litre, and it's the time it takes to, refuel for a litre, then they'll just keep the same tyres on. There's no advantage really of when you hit. It's just down to if you're in traffic, if you're being held up, or if you've got damage, for instance. Like, usually, if you've got a couple of seconds of damage, it's always a good idea just to come in and get it repaired, depending on what sort of car it is, particularly the McLaren, which is fairly sensitive with damage on it, because it's quite an aero dependent car. So Yeah, I wouldn't be quite. I'm not quite surprised that there's this many cars left to pit. Usually, you'll find these will probably pit about 10 minutes to go. Probably not going to see anything for the next 15 minutes of racing, if I'm being honest, Jesse Lee, before we see these lot pit again. Or pit.
Speaking of
Sorry,
damage, you're absolutely spot on with that. Jordan Daly, you'll notice, even with the slide, probably shouldn't be in 20th place right now, finds himself in 20th place. How did that happen? Well, it's quite simple. If we compare pit stop times to others that are leading of the cars, Stephen Quee in the 26, they're all the way up in 13th place. They had a 45.5 second pit stop. That's end to end on pit lane. That's about as low as you can go here at the Nurburgring. That's a pretty optimal stop. Jordan Daly had a 1 minute 16.7. Nobody else really in the same ballpark as far
That's
as.
a lot of damage, then.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe there was something we didn't see and there was considerable damage on that car, and that was causing some of the condition that they had prior. Or maybe because our replay cut off, it's also possible.
I think he may have a new set of boots. He set the fastest lap of the race.
Or the third option, Phil Roberts, as we're just going to ignore what's going on there.
Exhausting.
The third,
just some magical
option,
BMW going on.
You're a wizard, Zorsich. There's a third option, and that third option is he put on tires.
I think he's put on tires, to be honest. He may have had some flat spots on his and Zorzic has just spun off there, probably for the best for.
Oh, he actually has. That's an actual crash.
Yeah, I don't know what's happened there, but he's had a little bit of an incident there. But Steyer probably is quite happy with that, because I think that would have been a bit distracting having a BMW on a broomstick. The way he was driving at some point, Jesse Lee, but yeah, so going back to your point, I'm pretty convinced Jordan Daly's got a new set of tyres on, to be honest. Like, there's no way he's setting purple laps with, 35-minute-old tyres? I mean, it's a play, but it probably explains why he's behind Steer, Mekov, and Boardman when he was quite comfortably ahead of those three, to be honest. But I suspect, he's not that far up, to be honest. He's only like 2 seconds off Zorzic. He's only 10 seconds down from Steer, so he may be able to get, I'd say 22 minutes to go, depending on his pace difference. I think he can probably get back and switch on a razor. Is my bet, definitely.
Yeah, it's going to be a long road back to this one, but you've got to stay in it, get some points, and hopefully it is a championship after all. Hopefully you're still in it by the time that we get around to the end of the championship. Got to make something out of nothing here today if you are Jordan Daly. And those new tires, we've seen them be worth quite a bit on some racetracks. Nurburgring is one of the blank spots for me in my notes. I don't know in a post 1.9 update world how much they are worth around here. Some tracks, they're worth quite a darn bit. Suzuka, for instance, one of those tracks that apparently new tires pay for themselves over the course of the hour. That wasn't ever really a thing in ACC, but now potentially can be viable on some tracks in earnest. Used to be used as an insurance policy, now seems to be required. We'll see what it is today. Daly, of course, has the Speed Juice quickest lap of the race. Currently, I don't see anybody else taking tires. I was just looking at the timing and scoring for pit stops. I just don't know if anybody else will do it. Phil Roberts reckons we're about 10 minutes or so away from the top group coming into pit lane. He's smarter than me. He's won a pro race here at RCI, Phil Roberts. Pro winner Phil Roberts.
Yeah, around probably my strongest track, and ever since then I haven't scored a point in that championship, Jesse Lee, so I'm not sure if it
I didn't bring up that bit. You know what I brought up? Pro race winner Phil Roberts.
Yeah. Well, we've already had the interview for that one, Jesse Lee, so we don't need to talk about that one again. But yeah, it's one of those ones where you think, I think it's one of those ones where you spend a while here and you think it's never going to happen, so quite a weird feeling, really, having it happen. But Jordan Daly then makes his way past. Is that Zorzic? That's Zorzic.
That's
so
Zorzic,
he's made his Yeah, he's made his way past, so he's only got another. He's probably got another. Where's my calculator called? Just finding where Jordan Daly is on my screen. Where is he, Jesse? He's just coming through turn one. So he's got another. So he's caught up about 1.5 seconds to start steer in front of him. So he's on good pace at the minute, but we'll see if he can maintain it. As we see Benjamin Howman, I think he's the gap since we last checked about 20 minutes ago. Jesse Lee's gone up by about a second and a bit since then. It was about 2 seconds, 0.9 behind. A few, what was it like with 20 minutes gone? I think it was when we last checked, and now it's gone up to like 3.1. So it may be the case that Willamot's just found that pace again, or settled in, or something. I don't know, but yeah. But Stewie, Benjamin Hammond's still putting on a decent race. It's one of those ones where you're just out on your own now. You just gotta be consistent, check your relatives, see how you're doing to the cars around you. Just race you. It sounds a bit weird, but it's at this point where you just gotta race yourself, isn't it, Jesse Lee?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is one of those. It's lonely out there for Benjamin Heilman today, just sort of on their own island. It was under 2 seconds, the gap, and now, like you said, it's ballooned to 3 seconds, the largest it's been today. Quite curious what happened there. Was Grant Willamont just having a couple bad laps, or was Heilman on some really good laps and maybe burned through the tires, or has the sort of the pace swapped back in Grant's favor? We'll have to talk to the driver after the race and find that out, but certainly the gap going the opposite direction. He can still see him, can Benjamin Heilman, and as a matter of fact, if you look out the dash, you can still see the green Lamborghini of Grant Willamont out in front. That, to a racing driver, that's a carrot. And if you keep them in front of them, you never know what could be possible. Agudelo in the Ryder came to pit lane a lap ago. Svenik into the pit lane now, and that leaves 11 cars, the top 11 cars, as it were, that have yet to make their pit stop with 18 minutes left to go. Folks, while we have a moment, a break in the action, I just want to say thank you all for watching, and we appreciate you being with us here on a Friday night. And on your way out tonight, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like and subscribing, we've got more racing action coming for you, including round one of the 2023 World Tour. Tomorrow, 6 hours of Valencia, the new DLC track, the newest track in ACC, for 6 hours. It's going to be John Dalton, myself, and Stewie bringing you all the action of the day. Like, subscribe, don't want to miss that race. Already up on YouTube. Hit the notify me when we go live tomorrow for that. And of course, a big thank you to our partners that make this race and every race possible. AK Esports in particular. If you want to learn more about how they can help you set up esports events and run servers and competitions, AK Esports is your go-to place. AKEsports.it for more information on how they can help you with your esports ventures in the future. Of course, Fanatec, the leading direct drive sim racing hardware manufacturer. Fanatec.com, your one-stop shop in everything you need for all the top hardware from Fanatec. I believe they've still got that $199 direct drive base offer there as well. If you're looking to get into direct drive, you can get your base for as little as $200, I think it's dollars. I think it translates to pounds and euros as well for that price over at Fanatec.com. Use our affiliate link. When you go, it lets them know that we sent you. Thank you very much. Digital Motorsport is your one-stop shop for everything sim racing. Whether you're looking for a new rim or a completely new rig, Digital Motorsport has you covered. They've got all the top products from all the top brands, and including a sim rig builder. Build the sim rig of your budget or of your dreams at digitalmotorsport.com. Thank you very much to them as well. Driver 61 can help you get faster once you have all of your new equipment. Driver 61 offers one-on-one driver coaching and full-on racing schools to help get you up to speed. You can get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code. The link to that in the description of the video. And of course, a big thank you to Go Setups as well. Once you have the gear, once you have the rig, once you have the knowledge, you're still going to need a setup to compete with the top of the pros. For that, Go Setups has esports setups and safer alternatives for everybody. Go Setups has a setup pack for, I think, just about every modern car. It has every car, in fact, including the new Evo variants. Go Setups. Go get you some. You can buy them in a bundle or singular over at Go Setups. Bill?
And breathe Jesse Lee.
Yeah. Just had to get that out of there. I have a feeling I'm not going to be able to at the end of this race.
Well, it's going to get that exciting.
It's an RCI race, I would assume.
There just has to be a little catalyst before we have an explosion of action, probably Jesse Lee. But as we watch Andy Boardman negotiate his way round the Mercedes-Benz stadium section. I remember Jesse Lee. I'm not sure if you remember that section never used to exist. Turn of the millennium. It used to just be turn 1, turn 2 used to just be a right left, and then it went on to, I don't know what that right-hander is, or left-hander is after the stadium section. As you come out, I forgot what it's called now, what turn it is, but yeah, so it used to be a lot simpler. I forgot why they brought it in. I think it's because FIA standards on like spectators or something like that. So, or was it something to do with like the track length? I forgot what it was now, but they had to put in that extra bit. So I think, relatively speaking, in terms of the age of the track, I think that hairpin / stadium section's been in probably the lowest amount of time compared to the rest of the track.
2001, I'm pretty sure, wasn't it? 2001?
I think it was. I remember watching. I'll tell you what it was, Jesse. We were talking about classic liveries, and I was trying to find some the other day. And 1999 season was like the first F1 season I watched in full. So I remember that race. I think it was Pedro Deniz's Sauber that went over. I think it was Damon Hill's Jordan, and the roll bar basically got stuck in the gravel trap or something like that. So yeah, it's a bit of a doozy of an accident. I wouldn't say it's a horrible accident, but it certainly was one of those where it could have been a lot worse. But I just remember looking at it going, is this what the Nurburgring used to be like? I honestly didn't remember. Even though I watched it as a kid, I don't remember the Nurburgring being Sector 1 being that simple. But yeah, I'll take your word for it. If it was 2001 that it changed. It sounds about right to me. Anyway, yeah, I don't think they've been there. I don't think they've been there since the early 2000s. Maybe a few times they've been there. Like certainly not as much as Hockenheim.
What, F1?
Yeah.
Well, of course, F1 in the modern era used to alternate between Hockenheim and Nurburgring. So every other year, the German Grand Prix happened here. Of course, Hockenheim now doesn't host a Formula One Grand Prix. They no longer alternate. Quite
used to be a time when they wanted Germany to have so many races that they gave the European Grand Prix, which is what the Nurburgring hosted, and as well the Luxembourg Grand Prix, which is what the Nurburgring also hosted off the top of my head. Anyway, I'm not sure why it was called the Luxembourg Grand Prix, because Nurburgring's in the south of Germany. I thought Germany shared a border with Luxembourg near the middle to the north, like in the Rhineland or something. Really sure my German geography.
Nurburgring's sort of, I would call it middle left of the country. I wouldn't say it's south. I mean, technically it probably is south, right? But I wouldn't put it that far south. I could be very wrong.
I'm pretty sure someone in chat who has access to Google can correct us.
I love the idea that we don't have access to Google. We're just a little bit busy.
What do you mean? We're in the comms box, Jesse Lee. We only have.
We have internet in the comms box. We can look it up.
Well, you can look it up. I'm not looking at it through principle.
Phil Roberts, there are so many buttons in front of me and they're all flashing. I'm not looking.
Well, I'm not looking there through principle. I'm going all this off the top of my head, so I don't need to to waste my time looking something up unless it's irking me so much. But it's not irking me to the point where I'm. Anyways,
I had forgotten, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I had completely forgotten that the European Grand Prix used to occur here at the Nurburgring, and they used to have 2 Grand Prix. I completely forgot about that, but you jogged my memory about how often the European Grand Prix used to move around as well, or how it has moved around. But and now you have.
Well, it used to be. I think Donington Park was the first one that hosted one.
That's right. No,
and that was because
European Grand Prix.
And that was because obviously it had the success of Williams, a British team, success of McLaren, a British team. You had it was '93, so I'm not sure if it was because they thought Nigel Mansell winning the world title as early as a Hungarian Grand Prix. Yeah, think about that. People moaning about how predictable F1 is these days, just how quickly the 1992 championship was wrapped up. But yeah, I think that was the motivation behind that. I think they got to Jerez in '97 and Valencia. I don't know why I went to Jerez actually, sort of things, but yeah, I can't think apart from Valencia, I can't think of any other place where they had the European Grand Prix along with Nurburgring. We see this battle here between Qui and Rambach, giving us a bit of a background while we reminisce about 90s.
By the way, you were spot on with your borders. Luxembourg is 39 miles away from Nurburgring.
That's not too far in the grand scheme of things, to be honest with you. I mean, Imola used to host the San Marino Grand Prix. So yeah, Imola used to host the San Marino Grand Prix back in the early 2000s, early 90s. So, and that was obviously for the for Ferrari. So the Italians had like an extra race to watch their home constructor. Do we say? I think it was. But yeah. Moving on. Joshua Lation here in the 97 Porsche. Only P12. Or is he P12? Actually, the P15. I don't know what. Talking rubbish, but yeah, doing okay. I think there's still. I think Shelton's pitted actually, so we've still got 5 cars to pitch. Actually, with 6 minutes to go. So Willemot, Heilmann, Verstappen, Dorber, and Dos Ramos still yet to pitch. But yeah, they're probably going to find some time at some point. They haven't got any traffic to worry about. None of them really. Verstappen's on his own. Heilmann's on his own. He's 5.5 seconds behind Willemot now. So Dos Ramos on his own as well. So there's not really a motivation for any of them in the top 5 to pit. Like they're not really approaching any traffic or a bundle of traffic. That's usually a good time to pit at this stage. If you see, even though you do have priority as blue flag, if you come across what do you want to call it, a group, a gaggle of cars who are a lap down to you but are fighting for position, probably going to be very difficult to negotiate your way past that group. So you probably want to pit at that point, but not really any of the 5 have got anything to worry about in that regard. They're just on their own. So I think it's a dealer's choice for those 5 if they want to pit now or wait another, what we got, 5 minutes to go. So what's that, about 2 laps, I'd say, Jesse Lee, before the pit window closes?
Yep, you got about 2.5 laps, depending on where you are on the racetrack before the pit window closes. Reese Wilkinson trying to make a move on Snooty here. Snooty goes out wide. He's going to be overtaken. He goes off the racetrack momentarily. They're still side by side. Oh, it's a wide entry from Reese Wilkinson, but he's going to be able to make it work and gets back on the normal racing line. McFlutie will not appreciate that necessarily, being fanned over like he was, but the move made for Wilkinson, and that allows Zoricic to escape for the time being. It was 3 cars, but that momentary fight, only just for a couple of corners, allowed Zoricic to get away. Shelgren has been to the pit lane, Rombach has been into the pit lane, and Stephen Quee, who was the leader of the cars that had pitted for quite some time, still trying to get by Kui. We saw a little bit of that a moment ago. Shelgren up the track in front of those two by over 6 seconds. The top 5 still yet to pit. Wilmot's lead has swollen to 5.2 seconds. Verstappen in third by 3.5 over Joe Dauber. And Dos Ramos, who runs in 5th right now, it's going to be interesting. I've been paying attention to that. Talk about Jordan Daly setting the quickest lap, taking tires. I think just about the only driver that did take tires on pit lane. How far could they go? They might have Dos Ramos. I don't think they'll get back up there, obviously, with Dauber and Verstappen, but it could be potentially 7th or 8th place for Daly by the end of this. Maybe not.
A good recovery. A good recovery if he does make it into I think a top 10 would be, considering he's about 9 seconds, over 10 seconds off a Razor, 9 seconds off Boardman. I think any more positions than where he is now would be a win for him, to be honest, after the time he's been. Go back to my point I wanted to bring up, Jesse. Do you have like a list of synonyms for like expand or something like that? Because you've used like inflated, balloon, swollen. Do you have any others, Jesse Lee, to describe an extending gap, should we say? Or are we at your the verbular limit of how you can describe a gap that's getting bigger?
Enlarged.
Enlarged, that's a good one. Oh, Grant Wilmot's got a drive-through for speeding in the pit lane. Oh, Jesse Lee. What's going on here? We need to go and find. I need to go and find on the replay just how fast he was going into pit lane. We're going to see. So that's opened up this race completely now. I'd say to probably handed that one to Benjamin Howland, to be honest. Wouldn't you say, Jesse Lee?
Yeah, well, I'm just looking to see if maybe there was it was on the exit, but it wasn't. It was definitely on
no,
entry.
he's spent. Tell you what he's done. He's come out of his box and he's geared up into second.
Oh, he went to 58. He went to he sure did.
Like 58, 60, yeah. So.
He sure did. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you I needed to get the partners out of the way because this was going to get rather spicy near the end, and it has in fact done that. Grant Wilmot has dominated this race. He dominated qualifying. He has had no equal or rival this entire time, but he has made the cardinal error, the one that you cannot do, and he's messed up the pit stop. Drive-through penalty for speeding in pit lane. He sped up to nearly 60 kilometers an hour as he got out of his box, and well, you can't do that. He has disengaged the limiter, probably touched the button accidentally. That is going to drop him at least out of the lead. This may drop him off of the podium, and what a shame that would be. It has been almost a flawless day for the Brabham Esports driver of Wilmot until this point, but this is very frustrating. Benjamin Heilman is in the pit lane. Verstappen is in the pit lane. Grant Wilmot back into the pit lane.
We're going to have a nice fair look and see just how much of an advantage they're going to get now from this. Now, Stewie, well, Harmon's managed to drop on his jacks. He just turned green. Verstappen and Dauber still have not turned green on the timing tower yet. That means they're still up in the air. Dauber's just dropped down now. Verstappen probably going to drop down just before Dauber, so he's going to be within touching distance of Verstappen and
oh,
Dauber,
they're side by side.
A bit late. I think Verstappen just about made his way through, but you know he's behind Shelgren, so you know he's probably going to come out ahead of Ramback, who's just about 3 seconds behind. So you know he's got 5 seconds to. Well, I think he's only got enough time to get up to P4. I'd say Jesse Lee. He's only got a minute left. So Wes Harmony's going round the S's now. So yeah, we probably only got like this lap and the next one, and then that's it, Jesse Lee. So he's gonna have to get moving if he wants P4.
Coming down to the end, Grant Wilmot led this entire race down into P4 after having to come down pit road on extra time. Joe Dauber promoted into P3, and what a race it's been for Joe. Super patient, super smart, has not put a fender wrong, has done everything you have to do. in this race. Patience, smart execution, and just good driving to boot. And he looks like he is about to be granted at least P3, but it isn't over yet. Verstappen had a slower pit stop, 2 seconds slower than Joe Dauber. That's only a problem if it was 2.5 to 3 seconds between the two of them, which it was when they came in, and that has absolutely closed this gap up. You can actually see Willemont's in 5th place. Shelgren is the car in the background I see. That BMW is actually 4th. Joachim Shelgren has had a heck of a race as well. The time has expired, and was that the checkered flag? It was for Benjamin Heilman. He was patient. He sat there in 2nd all day. Benjamin Heilman wins his own series, which means we should probably disqualify him. Christoph Verstappen comes home P2, though it was a close one with the ever-patient veteran of Joe Dauber. Shelgren comes across the line in P4, and Grant Willemont will be wondering what might have been. Oh, and in fact, he has parked the car. Grant Willemont has parked the car. He has not finished 5th. That has put Rombach into 5th. Stefan Cui up into 6th. Huel, Eraser, Boardman, Das Ramos, your top 10. What just happened?
No, I'm lost, Jesse Lee. Now, what's happened? Has Willemont just forgotten where the start finish line is or something?
Nope, I think that's what they call in the business a rage quit.
Fair enough. But yeah, it's a fantastic race. I was going to say Grant Willemont's, unfortunately, as we say, Jesse Lee blotched his copybook for this race, sadly. But yeah, it's one of those ones where, you know, it's such a avoidable mistake to make. I'm sure he's going to be beating himself up about it, to be honest. But played to Heilman, kept his nose clean throughout. Fantastic bit of racing, to be honest, to win, as you say. He's the first of the Jesse Lee Roulette Championship. What he said, it's not Stewie's Championship, but the Jesse Lee one. If you remember, at the head of the race.
I'm going to make a deal with Heilman.
Mm-hmm.
If this is his idea, I'm revoking the win. But if he lets me take credit, he can keep it.
Interesting. Well, we'll see if he's...
That's a joke, of course. For those of you at home, that is a joke.
Oh, it's not for me, Jesse Lee, so... We're going to get him in here. We're going to get him in here.
Oh, yes, he's got to do an interview. He's got to do one. Get him in here, please, Phil Roberts.
He's got to do one.
Make sure, this is the peek behind the curtain for those of you still watching at home, make sure he knows he is requested by Jesse Lee and Phil Roberts to do a winner's interview here tonight. He cannot say no.
Yeah, we'll see if we can drag him.
Results of the race confirmed, of course. Benjamin Heilman wins it on the drive-through penalty. He just never really dropped off. He was 5 to 5.5 seconds there at the end of the race. Definitely close enough to keep in contact, and ends up with the win by default by just not making a mistake. Congratulations to Benjamin Heilman, Christoph Verstappen, Joe Dauber, your podium. Shelgren, Willemont, Rombach, Cui, Huel, Eraser, Boardman, the top 10, Dos Ramos, Daly, Steer, Mikov, Lation, Zoricic, Wilkinson, McFlude, Partez, Svinik, Daniels, Agadello, Niblet, Borski, your top 24. And, it did credit Willemont, matter of fact, with 5th. So what happened?
I think he crossed the line and he just went back to the pit lane.
That is exactly what happened. So Grant Willemont did not rage quit. I rescind my last, and I apologize to Brabham and Grant Willemont. That was not a retirement. What they did do was cross the line, immediately go to the pit lane, and leave the session. Well, Phil Roberts, I'm going to leave this to you.
Well, you still got to ask him the important question, Jesse Lee, but I'll leave it till afterwards. Stewie, if I can call you that, you know, bit of well, we could say the unfairly that the win was handed to you, but how was it driving for you? We were making a comment halfway through the race that you felt a bit lonely. I think you
Yeah, I mean, it was lonely at the front here because somehow Chris wasn't quick today, but I don't know. I don't know if my setup wasn't good for driving an hour, but like the longer the race went on, the bigger the pace gap between Grant and me got. He was just so consistent, didn't make any mistakes, and I just had a bit too many slides. So he should have won, definitely. He was much quicker and more consistent.
I think we concur with that point as well, but I think that's just rubbing salt into the wounds for Grant, to be fair to him. We mentioned he's a blotched copybook today is the phrasing I've used, but take no credit away from you, Stewie. Very consistent race. We're just commenting how difficult it is being in a bit of a bubble, should we say, on your own to be consistent as well. So credit where it's due as well. But do you see any? I presume you didn't get to see much out there, Stewie, incident-wise, or
I mean, I heard Bailey when he spun around because we were in a voice chat, but apart from
Yes.
that,
Can you describe the noise?
I actually don't remember. It was just like a quick curse word, and that's it.
Fair enough. Stewie, I don't really have that much to say. I think there's not really that much to mention for your race other than, as I said, commendable consistency. The only one I want actually while watching the replay at the start, I didn't want to mention. Was it a bit hairy for your start? You had Verstappen on the inside, and then you managed to recover onto the inside for the stadium. Would you say that's a bit of a?
Chris just let me go again because he knew I was quicker from the practice, so he didn't try to fight it. So
Okay.
what do you think? But today was the first race in the new Porsche for me, basically, except the one thing we did at Valencia, but I don't count that. But yeah, actually the first time driving the new Porsche, and I'm not happy.
You're not happy?
No.
Yeah, so you had to tell me, Stu, because we mentioned on the stream you are a bit of a Porsche savant, should we say? What don't you like about this car compared to the previous one?
I don't know. I don't know if it's the 1.9 or the car, but it's just the other one was just way more reactive and more fun to drive, and this feels a bit more sluggish. So yeah.
That kind of makes sense to me. Jesse Lee, did you have any questions for our race winner?
Yeah, Stewie, you gotta feel like this is a little silly. It's your idea. Bart Macha gave you all the credit for it, and then you go out there and win the first race. If that's not collusion and favoritism, I don't know what is. What are your thoughts?
I mean, for the first race, everybody knew what the track was, so everybody could pick a car. And I don't know, I just picked the Porsche for the track I know, because we all know there's much worse tracks for the Porsche, and I definitely wanted to drive it, so I'm gonna see for the next 3 rounds, I guess. Because now the actual fun of this championship starts, where nobody knows what the track is.
Stewie, can you give us any insight into what your car pick will be next week? Or don't you want to say that yet? You want to keep your cards? Do you want to keep your hand close to your chest?
I mean, it doesn't really matter because everybody will see it anyways. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna take the McLaren next week.
Okay.
And then, depending on how it goes, if I'm still like in the running for the championship, I guess I'm gonna take a serious car, and otherwise I'm gonna do something like M6 or something for the.
What do you mean, the McLaren's not a serious car?
No, I mean if next week goes well, and I'm, in the fight, then I'm gonna take like an actual car that I can do something with. But if not, then I'm just gonna take M6 or something fun that's not competitive.
That would be, well, I'm hoping I'm hoping for either, to be honest, Stewie. I want to see an off-meta car, but I also want to see you try and do well for this championship. So yeah, Jesse Lee, you did mention something about credit in your question there. Did you want to mention to Stewie, before he watches the stream back, what you also said, or you're going to mention it here to him?
I think I'll let him figure it out for himself. But what I said was,
okay, fair enough.
Stewie, you get credit for this series, which I think it's very interesting, all things considered. You get to keep credit for it, but you vacate the win, or you let me have credit for it and you get to keep the win. What would you pick?
I guess I'll give you the credit.
Yeah, let's go! Ladies and gentlemen, Benjamin Heilman, surprise winner of round number 1. Stayed in the game all day. All jokes aside, a deserving winner simply because They did not make mistakes. Congratulations, Stewie. Back on top of the pro podium again.
Thanks.
You know, Phil, a lot of times in racing, it's not always about being the fastest car. It's about keeping others around you honest. It's about running your own race, knowing what your pace is, not trying too hard, not putting yourself in a bad situation, and execution. That's the big word, execution. Today, Benjamin Heilman executed.
It was fantastic first round. We saw plenty of overtakes, plenty of action, some brilliant, consistent driving from the top three when it mattered, and so a great start to the Jesse Lee Roulette Championship.
Let's stop calling that. In all seriousness, I had nothing to do with this. I'm only kidding. This came from a brainchild of Stewie, and Bart Macha made it happen. All credit to them. I am super happy with what we saw today. And this is typically the point where we would say, oh, we'll see you next week at, except we don't know. None of us will know until Tuesday
next week.
night.
Next week at the not Nurburgring. We can say that.
We know that Stewie will be back next week, not in a Porsche, and we will not be at the Nurburgring. But beyond that, we just don't know. But we will be live here for round number 2 of the Friday Roulette. Wherever we are, you'll be joined by Tim Peck and Phil Roberts. I will be silent as God intended, and we will see you then. Phil Roberts, final thoughts?
I think I've already said as much during the race. Consistency is the key. Making no mistakes is the key, and that mantra's been proven right tonight.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Folks, once more, we ask you on your way out, like, subscribe, hit the bell for more GT racing action here on RCI TV. We'll be back live with you tomorrow for round number 1 of the 2023 RCI World Tour, the 6 hours of Valencia, live here again. You're not going to want to miss that. It's going to be a fantastic race. And of course, the Monday Championship continues. The Mini British GTs, that live on Monday, and we'll be back with you on Friday as well. Some excellent action and drama to the last sees Benjamin Heilman win it here in dramatic fashion at the Nurburgring. Who will win next week? What cars will they all be on? Where in the world will we be? Until then, we thank you all for watching. Have a good night.